Welcome, Mark. It's so great to finally meet you. We've been kind of connecting via a mutual friend, and I'm very excited to interview you about your new book.
I didn't realize how hard. When you told me how many books you've done, that's amazing because it's not easy to get that book out there. But, just like your books, your messages are so important for people to have. And I'm hoping Life of Your Dream, if people are stuck or they didn't even realize they had quit dreaming, they'll start dreaming again.
That's amazing. Well, you've got such a story that can encourage people to dream. And if you hadn't kept dreaming, you wouldn't have done what you've done. I mean, I know one of the first things that I want to ask you is that, I mean, you initially went from earning $37,000 a year or something as a teacher to being now a phenomenally successful billion-dollar business owner. And I mean, how did you do that? So my first question is, what's your mental shift that started that journey? Because that is a massively big journey that you obviously dreamed into reality.
Thank you for asking that question because I get that quite often. And I tell people, someone will say they taught school or coach, and it's like one semester. I taught for 16 years. So it was like a
Wow.
whole career. But I always felt like there was something missing. I had this feeling
Mm.
inside where I felt like I was meant for more. And, I want to take care of my family better. I wanted to, a real small dream in the beginning was more cash than bills at the end of the month. And I tell
Yeah.
people today, where I'm at today, I couldn't even have dreamed that big back then. I think dreaming's like a muscle. The more you use it, the bigger it gets. And, as
Mm.
as I went on the journey, just to make some extra cash, and then it was, could I own my own business and go full time? Then it was, we moved the company from Michigan to Florida. It was a big move. People said I'd
Mm.
lose all my employees, and it was really a catalyst for going to another level. And then today, to think of the things we get to do, we entertain a lot of people, and we have a big ranch, a 10,000 acre ranch, and we have a private island that people will come, and it's all to inspire them, to get them to dream. And if you told me that when I first started, it would have been too big for me. I wouldn't have believed it. And so for me, it was one step at a time. It was
Mm.
just getting started. People ask me, one of the most important things today, I tell them, get in the game. Don't sit up in the stands and watch others. Get in the game. Get out there and start building your dreams.
I love that. I love that. So it's one small step at a time, not have that huge dream and then see where it goes. So did you in that process though, what shifted your mind the most in terms of as you were going through, because in the beginning you dreamed it was just to pay the bills, and then it's suddenly
Yep.
like now you own a multi-billion-dollar business. So, you're in a very different place and that dream was too big. Where would you say that the big changes started happening in your mind shift?
I think when we went to write this book, I was really thinking back on those
Yeah.
occasions, and it made me realize, um, some important parts we put in there. One, celebrating your wins. I was so focused on the next step that sometimes I forgot to celebrate. And doing the book let me read back a little bit and go, it was all a process. We started making extra money, and I realized I had this talent that I could sell. And then it was like, what if we owned our own business? And so we took that step. And each time it was a step, it was not always just straight up. It was, you go forward a step, back a step, forward two steps, back one step. There was a couple of times when we started our company that someone said to me, Mark, I think we're going to shut it down. And, in my mind, I was thinking, we don't have a plan B. This is it. We've got to figure it out. And so I think the more you dream, the more the muscle got bigger, the more you started having confidence in yourself. And the more I started going, all right, failure's not an option here. We just got to figure out a different way to do it. And I look back and realize even things when we were thinking of moving the company to Florida. I went around our office. We had about 25 employees at the time. And I would say, I'm thinking of moving the company to Florida. Better taxes there. People could visit us in the winter and they want to come to Florida. They didn't want to come to Michigan in the winter. And I thought I was saying that to my employees. I really was saying it to myself. And the more I said it, I was convincing myself, now you got to do it. You said it. And so I do a whole chapter on say it or see it. And I think people are different. Some need to visualize, some need to hear it. For me, it was hearing it. The more I said something, the more it's like telling myself, okay, now you got to go do it.
Oh, I love that. In my work, I talk a lot about how thoughts actually create. With our mind, we create our thoughts, and our thoughts then change our brain and our body and change our life. And what limiting belief do you think you had to rewire in order to grow to the next level? So there must have been, along the way, there must have been some limiting beliefs. What did you have to rewire?
A couple things that were real important to me. One was the word risk. Sometimes we hear risk and we think, oh, that's bad. But there's bad risk and good risk. And so we had to calculate, like when I wanted to leave teaching, I'd gone to college, be a teacher, coach. And when I was thinking of stepping out and being my own boss, entrepreneur, it was scary because you're thinking, wait, I don't get a paycheck every week and I'm not on somebody else's benefits. And so it was gaining a confidence of, okay, risk doesn't mean bad. Risk means you need to calculate it. And I tell people today, the worst risk of all is doing nothing at all, taking no risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so that one was real important to me. And then the second one was who you surround yourself with. I've watched so many people bring me a great idea or a dream they have. And yet I call it dream killers. There's dream givers, dream killers. I want to surround myself with dream givers. They're going to support your dream. Dream killers are people that have never done it before and are very negative. And I think people have them around them. It might be their own family. And sometimes I think maybe someone's dream didn't happen, not because of what they did, but who they surrounded themselves with. And there's a quote I love to use. I say this all the time. A dream planted in the right environment can thrive. Planted in the wrong
really
environment, it can die. And sometimes it's just who you surround yourself with.
That is really good advice. I mean, it's actually quite simple, but it's so true, because if someone is negative about what you and say, oh, that can't be done, you lose confidence, especially if you're still trying to do something, if it's like the beginning of the dream or you're in the midst of a shift or something like that. So that's very good. And then the risk thing, I love that.
Well, even I'm not just trying to surround myself with people that cheer you on. You want people with experience that can kind of tell you where the potholes are in the road so that you'll miss it. But they still got to, sometimes someone will have a big dream and I'll see them a week later and they'll be like, yeah, my best friend Joe said I couldn't do it. I never do it. And I would say, well, has Joe done this before? And they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, someone that's never done what you want to do.
Don't take advice from them.
Exactly. So those two things really helped me evaluate the risk. And, I said two, but I got to give you a third.
Go for it.
I decided we were going to live our life on the offense. So much of life is what it's given you, defense, and you're taking, you take a step ahead and the car makes a funny noise or something, there's a leak in the roof and you're like, oh, I just got ahead. And so I decided I want to live on the offense. I'd rather dictate than just take what's being given to me with life. And as a coach, it fit because when you offense, you score, you get to do an end zone dance. It's a celebration. Teams that play defense, a lot of times it's called prevent defense, but the other team scores and you lose. So if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose going on the offense and dictating what's happening. So going on the offense really changed my perspective of life. Instead of going, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened today, I got to dictate. I got to go, you know what? I'm not letting that happen. I'm in charge.
I love that. That's really extremely good advice, because it is so easy to sit back and get knocked by the knocks of life and not really move forward. It reminds you of Thomas Edison. He, when he was into, the light bulb, and when he was interviewed, one of the reporters actually asked him, I mean, you've probably heard the story before, that he said, what do you feel about all your 1,000 whatever failures? And he was quite irritated. He turned around and he said, they're not failures. I know 1,000 things that don't work.
I love
You know,
that.
and when you were talking, it reminded me of his quote, because it sounds like that's what you've done when you take the offense instead of the what did you say, offense instead of defense, when you drive the dream as opposed to just giving up. And when you calculate the risk by looking at those people that are around you, are they giving you good advice? Are they giving you advice about things that they know nothing about? Are they, you know,
Exactly.
are they being negative? Are they telling you about potholes? That's you taking the lead. That's really good advice. Simple
Thank you.
advice, but logical, but not
Yes.
advice that I think people don't always take, because when you're stuck in the middle of a business problem or some kind of problem, you get so consumed by the problem that you just see the problem. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that, you've got to take it back again and kind of rise above the problem and almost stand outside of it to move forward.
That's right. I truly believe that. And, a lot of times as parents, we did that with our kids. We'd say,
Yeah.
who are you surrounding yourself with? And yet we forget as adults the influence other people have on us. And then when
Yeah.
I started our own company, we decided when we hired someone, we were going to make sure that it was people that were positive. They wanted to add. They didn't want to just sit back and go, that won't work. That won't work. And
Mm.
so we're very intentional who we hire at our company now to make sure they have experience and have done it, and that they're very positive. They know how to play well with others.
Yeah.
You can do so much more with a rising tide.
I love that. I love play with others. You need to play with others. You say success is a system. I like that, because I like the word system. How
Mm.
much of that system is strategy and how much is mindset? Or is it a balance? I mean,
Yeah, I do think it's a balance. I think mindset so much though. I remember my CFO called me into the room once and saying, Mark, this isn't working. You're going to bury yourself. You keep putting more money into this. And I had to think about that, because in the reality, it was probably true. But in my mind, I knew that's not an option. I think of like a Rubik cube. You got to keep turning that
yeah.
cube to find the right combination. And so when he told me that, I didn't think about, oh, you're right. We failed. We got to close the doors. I thought, okay, what do we have to do different? Insanity, keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
We started thinking, what's the different thing we can do so we get a different result?
I like that so much, because that is really how you can grow forward. Because it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean you have to stop everything. If that didn't work, it's okay if it didn't work. I think that's really what we need to tell us, because of this high hustle culture we live in. It's always, well, that didn't work, you're a failure. No, you're not. Just try something else. Keep going.
Yeah.
I love the Rubik Cube example. That's really great, because you just have to keep on doing it to work till you get to the point where it works.
Exactly. Exactly.
So good. How do you personally deal with intrusive thoughts or self doubt in high stakes moments? Because I know you're a very positive person, and I know you're very, you've got a lot of faith and that kind of thing. But I'm sure there's been moments where, where things don't look so great, or even when they are looking great, but there's some new challenge. So how do you deal with intrusive thoughts or self doubt in those high stakes moments?
Great question. Appreciate you asking that, because there are times where you're second guess yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
you're wondering, is it just not my time? And for me, I have to recharge myself. I have to do things that I get excited about. It might be exercising, might be reading a good book, it might be watching the sunset. Sometimes just me being able to sit and think about it, all of a sudden it's amazing how new ideas come to you, or you get new energy. And for me, I would tell people, one, it's going to happen. Just realize you're going to have times where you're like, that wasn't a very good decision. What was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. That's all part of the journey. And, you go back again, I was a coach. I use a lot of the analogies, but, some of the greatest players in history of any sport miss more shots than they took, and are missed, many of them. And so it's keep shooting, keep thinking, what's a way that you can turn that around, and realize there's times you need to take a rest. You need to make sure you're refreshing yourself and re-energizing. That we're not superheroes. We're people that uh, it'll go our way, and you're on the mountaintop, and then something happens, and you're not on the mountaintop, and it's how do you get
Yeah.
back there? And so I just encourage people that if something's, they go, Mark, you wouldn't believe, I failed at this, or I didn't do. I'm like, that's just part of your journey. That's all part. It's I like the movie Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. It's like you're going to get knocked down, but you got to get back up. And I was a math teacher, so it's called the resiliency quotient. And it's how many times you get knocked down divided by how many times you get back up. As long as it's one or greater, you're still in the game. And so for me, it's knowing those things are going to happen, coaching people that you're going to have these days. You're going to have a bad day. It's okay. Get ready for the next day because we're going to get right back in there because your dream's worth it.
You said such a lot of good stuff there, and I love your resiliency quotient. That's so great. How many times you fall down, how many times you get up, divide by each other. Is that what did I get it correct? I love that. And I love the fact that you're telling people to keep progressing forward. That's something that, people just kind of give up. And I think a lot of it's to do with the messaging that is coming through on with a biomedical model. And if you're battling and there's something wrong with you, it takes so much hope out of people. Meanwhile, we've got to keep moving forward. You can't just name your feeling or say that. You've got to keep going. You can't just say, well, this is it, I'm giving up. And that's really great. The evidence is there in what you've done. I mean, that's really great. I agree with you. Keep moving forward. That is just so important. You write about creating multiple income streams, okay? And while working full-time. So you're working full-time and creating multiple income streams. What role does purpose play in sustaining that kind of almost like a hustle? I hate to say the word hustle, but how do you sustain something like that? Because I think a lot of people are in that position currently in today's climate.
Yeah. Well, when we were, I say we, my wife and I, we're raising our kids, and I'm teaching, I'm coaching. It still wasn't enough income. And so we had to do side jobs or gigs or to make extra income. And even when our dream was to own our own business, we felt like we were too busy. And we're raising our kids. I'm teaching. I'm coaching 2 nights a week. We're involved in the church. And we had to decide if things are going to change, what could we do different? So we decided together we're going to give 1 night a week to our dream, to what we thought our business could be. And we decided no matter what. So, a typical week might be a rough day at school, and I'd be like, honey, I'm too tired. And she'd say, no, we committed. Or maybe I would come home that day and she was watching the kids and she goes, your kids were brats. Whenever it was my kids, I knew I was in trouble. And I'd say, no, we committed a week. And that commitment was what changed things for us, because at least 1 night a week, we were building our dream instead of maybe someone else's. And, people will say, what would I do different today? Well, knowing the outcome, I would have committed more days. But back then, 1 day a week was a big sacrifice for us. And that's what started creating income. And things change so quickly. When you asked your question, how do you keep that going? I mean, things are changing so quickly that it's really staying relevant and being ready to change. What worked yesterday may not be the same thing today. And, I look at my business. We used to sell our products in a home party. Today it's on social media. It's Reels and TikToks and it's already changing now with YouTube and the way we can deliver our messages. So to me, it's staying fresh, staying relevant, making sure you're listening to new ideas. I call the last chapter I talk about in the book is the redream, because I think once you dream and now you do that dream, it inspires you to dream to another level. And all of a sudden, people will say to me now, what's your dream? Because they know I've always got something going in my mind. And once you get that confidence that you can make it happen, your mind starts expanding. And it's like, right now I'm in a cancer battle. And so I have a real passion for finding cures for cancer, and especially for kids, because pediatric, it's one thing my age to get that, but those kids, it just breaks your heart. And so we're doing a lot with science, working, partnering with organizations. And again, back when I was teaching, I couldn't think about finding cures for cancer. Where today, all the proceeds from the book, we're putting it to finding cures for cancer. And we think that's important. So I think you start wherever you start. There's no such thing as a small dream, because that's important to you at that time. But as you build on that and you gain more confidence, and you watch, all of a sudden your mind's expanding. I've listened to you talk on that, you know,
Yeah.
the self-talk that you do with yourself. All of a sudden you get very confident in what you can accomplish.
That's so good. That's so good. You just so that everyone, just make sure that I've understood you and everyone's followed that. I love the fact that you spoke about a commitment, regardless of how tired you and your wife were. You had that commitment to that day where you were going to dream those dreams and try and see if you could make them a reality. And come hell or high water, you stuck to that. I love the fact that you stress that change. We need to be flexible, and that's something, Mark, that I found so much with people. That is, people don't want to change. They want, this is how it's got to be. Employees or people in their lives. When I work with patients, it was always like, well, this is how it is. I don't know how to get beyond that. And to have this possibilities mindset, that change is, it's a part of it. And if you can accept change, it's so much easier. So I'm glad you stressed the change, because that's something that I have found from my work. People really, really battle with change. They know they need to be flexible, but it's not something that people find very easy. Now, what was the third one that you said? There were three things that you said. It was the commitment, it was the change, and then redream. Beautiful. Redream, because that goes to your very first point that you made, which was if you had to think of where you are now, that was too much at that point when you first started as a coach and as a teacher. But as each dream was achieved, you then had a redream. That is such a nice concept. I really like that concept of redreaming as you teach. So it's better. It's kind of better than the goals and setting goals and visions, because that's so fixed. A dream is so creative, and then to redream is so much. I really like that. Did I say it correctly?
You did. You said it. I love saying this. Some people are visual. Some have to hear it. We do what we call a dream board. We'll sit down with a family, and it might be a vacation we want to take. It might be something that you want, but we do a dream board of things that you want to accomplish. And then we started calling it the redream, because people would start slow, almost like dipping your toe in the water to see if it's cold. They wouldn't just jump in. And then as they accomplish, they'd say, well, wait a minute, I want to redo. I want to dream more, which meant, a larger dream. So I tell people, one of my favorite quotes is, the dream that will make you most proud is the one you're afraid to say out loud. And I think all of us have that. I think our listeners today, there's something here that they've been afraid to say, because in case it doesn't come true, or maybe they will look bad. But right now, I think every one of them has something here that if they let them just say it, today when you're getting ready for work or whatever, or putting your makeup on, when you look in that mirror, say what will make you most proud. What dream are you afraid to say out loud right now?
That's so good, because people are so afraid because they're worried about what other people will think. Meanwhile, it doesn't matter. It's that Rubik's Cube example. You just keep going, keep changing, keep moving forward, accept change. That's so good. I really like that. So say it out loud. If there's something that you're proud of, don't keep it to yourself. Say it out. It doesn't matter what other people, how they react. It's your dream. And even if it doesn't work out exactly like that, does that matter? The fact that you're actually trying, isn't that what counts?
That is.
It's going to go somewhere. Yeah, no, that's so good. Let's talk about financial trauma, because that's something that people, you and I both know, that's really common, especially in our climate today. Many people carry a deep fear or shame around money. How do you help people shift out of that fear-based security mindset that keeps them stuck? Kind of like financial trauma.
Yeah. And that's really what I'm hoping this book does. We have 7 steps, and each step, I think, for different people, it might be just realizing, I had a lady the other day, single mom, 3 kids. And she said to me, Mark, when I came to your company, you're always talking about dreaming and setting goals. And she said, I'm thinking I'm too busy in life. I'm trying to take care of my 3 kids. I'm working 2 jobs. And she said, but listening to you, I realized my kids weren't dreaming. And I thought, why are my kids dreaming? It's because I wasn't dreaming. And she said, I want you to know, today I'm dreaming big, and my kids are learning to dream. And it was an emotional moment. She gave me a big hug, and there were some tears. And I thought, I think for many people, it's realizing life's gotten so busy that maybe you're stuck, or maybe you've quit that dream you had when you first started. You're like going to conquer the world, and life gets chaos and stuff going on. And I want this book to help people either identify if they've been stuck. There's some different steps here to get unstuck, or maybe identify they're not dreaming. You know, when I say step one is give yourself permission to dream, get in the game, start thinking about those things you used to really fill you up and you had a passion for. So, you know, I'll tell people get in the game, and then what is it you want? Either say it or see it. You know, cut out pictures of something you want to accomplish. Some people, you know, they got to visualize it. And for me, I realized I wasn't saying it to others. I was saying it to myself. And so make sure, you know, say it and see it. Live on the offense. You know, I think sometimes people feel like you're supposed to take what life gives you. I think it's a mind shift, a mindset. When you say, no, I'm on the offense. I'm dictating my life. And it's a change. So I think each of these steps can be something that no matter where somebody is in their journey, might be the one thing that really gets them going again.
I love that. And people can look at the steps, they can read through the book, they can get all the inspiration. And I highly recommend that because it's, you know, it's not coming from, you're giving advice from someone who actually is in a place to give advice. You know, so it's a good, so you may, not everyone may be able to physically come into contact with you and have personal coaching with you, but by reading your book, they can start gaining some of these, putting some of these principles to practice in their life, which is really amazing. That's wonderful. You talk about creating generational wealth. What legacy do you want to leave, not just financially, but mentally and emotionally?
You know, great question. So my daughter, Kinsey, is the one that kind of pushed me to, I had started a book before COVID and I didn't like where it was going. I stopped, and she came along and said, Dad, you're finishing the book and I'm going to be in charge. And she was tough.
I love that.
No, she did a great job. But we started talking about, I didn't want this to be a one-time event. You know, I don't want, we've got, I think 6 grandkids now, maybe 7. And I didn't want them to say, oh, Papa was amazing. Papa did all this stuff. I wanted them to realize I wanted them now to go on my shoulders and take it to another level. I didn't want this to be a one-time thing. You know, my parents all worked for GM at the factory. And so going to college was a big deal. And so when I left teaching, I thought, oh, you know, my parents worked hard to make sure I had this opportunity. And they supported me in being an entrepreneur. And I wanted my grandkids to realize they have more opportunity than I have now. They could go to any school. There's things they could do that I don't think there's anything that they can't do. And so I want them not to be going, boy, Papa's really good. I want them to go, okay, how do we take this responsibility and keep
to another
growing it?
level?
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I think the future, our future generation will be world changers. I think dreamers are world changers. You know, that's who changes the world. It dreams, vision. You know, I used to hear the word dreamer and I think sometimes people say, oh, he's just a dreamer. And I'll say, no, a dreamer of the day dreams and then does it. And it's the vision. And, you know, finding the cures for cancer, a business that can exponentially grow. I mean, there's so much that we get to do, and it starts with that dream. And so for me, I'm hoping this is just a starting, that someday, you know, great grandkids I don't know will read this book and say, all right, what can we do to help change the world?
Oh, that is wonderful. I really want to zone in on a point that you made, that you had your parents really battle to put you through, get college education, and your grandchildren now can do anything they want. If you look at it, that could be crippling as much as what your start in life could be crippling. So it's even though because people immediately think, okay, well, you've got enough money to do anything, you're going to be fine. That's not necessarily the case, as we know from so many stories. There's another whole set of challenges that they're facing, you know, and I like the fact that you say that, you know, you want to see what they do with those challenges, even though they've got access. It's a different challenge, what they'll do to take it to the next level. That's so good. That's so important. I love that. You've faced some major setbacks. What is your go-to method for turning obstacles into growth? I think you've basically answered this question, but I'd love to get quite practical. So facing resilience, I mean, you're going through a major battle with cancer at the moment, and I'm really sorry about that. But I know from the smile on your face and your attitude and, you know, the fact that you are dreaming, and I can tell you as a scientist, your mind creates the dream. The mind is 99% of who we are, and the brain and body just follow suit. So a huge part of that's why there's so much research out there showing that there's a link between mind and healing and that kind of things. It's called psychoneurobiology. So I'm really interested to hear, in terms of major setbacks, which are part of life. I mean, no one's going to not have any major setbacks. What is your go-to method that you've obviously refined over the years for turning a barrier into an obstacle into something that you can springboard from? If that question makes sense.
Yeah, great question. When I first, we had just taken the company, I think we hit like 780 million that year, and we're flying high, so much going well, and we're able to help in the community and giving back. And then I got the call from the doctor saying, "Hey, we got a problem." And we didn't have any of that in cancer in my side of the family. So I really was confused. And so you do think through, why is that happening, or what's going on? And, I reflect back now that it's been a few years, went to remission and just came out. So we'll get it back down there again, but it made me go, why? And then look back now and think maybe it was to have this passion. Cancer affects almost, you ask somebody in the room, you have it, or one of your family members have it, or someone, almost every person stands up. And so it made me go, maybe that was meant to be, so I would have a passion to help others, especially the pediatric. And then it goes back to who you surround yourself with. I work with a gentleman here named Dick Vitale. Dick is a big commentator for ESPN, and they have the V Foundation, and he's in his 80s, mid 80s now, and has raised over 100 million for pediatric cancer. And I watch his passion, and I watch how, some days I've seen him where he's like, people become successful and they forget where they came from and they're not giving back. And he wants everyone to have this passion for giving back. And so for me, when I do want to have a little bit of a, oh my, why is that happening? It's being around the right people. And I believe what you just said a few minutes ago, smiling, positive, passion. If I'm down for long, I can't stay there. If I do, I wouldn't be able to get back up. I've got to have people with energy around me. I've got to have people that are passionate about life. And I realize it's not the journey I would choose, but I get to do this. And yes, I believe in our faith that God has this and he has a great plan. I think we'll get on top of this. I got some great doctors. We're going to get on top. I got great people supporting and battling. But the positive outcome of this is bringing an awareness and then being able to support doctors and scientists that are a lot smarter than I am that can actually find the cures for this. And so for me, it's wherever you're at when you have a failure, you got to surround yourself with people that are going to help you turn that. And then I like to laugh. Humor for me is my best medicine.
Good medicine.
If I can't joke around, I tell people that work for me, if I'm not teasing you and joking, you should be worried, because I'm not seeing the potential right now. Because for me, it's people that make me laugh, and that life's going to end at some point anyway. So what impact are you going to make, and what are you going to leave? And for me, it just made me realize it does end someday. You don't want to be morbid, but it does end someday.
The reality.
And so what can we do to really make a difference? What's something my family's going to be proud of? What's something that you said a minute ago, I tell my family all the time, it doesn't matter what happened in the past. We're going to plant our flag, and we're going to take our family in this direction of, we are going to do good, and we're going to stand for things, and we're going to help people that can't help themselves. And I think that's a mindset that you decide.
Yeah.
But yet it's so important that we want to pass it on to the rest of our family.
That's a beautiful answer, Mark. Thank you. I thank you for sharing that answer. And it's very encouraging, because people are experiencing tragedy all around the world and challenges, and you found a way of seeing the silver lining and seeing the meaning and the eternal perspective in giving back. And so many people, we read so many stories about people that are facing challenges, and it's consistent. What you've said now, not to take away from your beautiful answer, but what you've said now is very, very real. When people see the silver lining, and when they want to give back to humanity, they want to be decent humans. How can I improve life for other people? How can I turn this into something that can make other people's lives better, those are the people that move forward. And that's how we, that's the consistent theme there. And you've applied that in your life, and you certainly are doing that. So, thank you for that. Thank you for being vulnerable about that. That's really,
Well,
really
thank
great.
you. And I would say, someone listening, it's not all rainbows. I mean, there's days you're sick. There's days you don't feel good. There's days you're tired of being tired. But know that your mindset's going to be just what we said earlier. You're going to get back up. And if it takes a day, a week, or whatever it takes, you're going to get back up. And that's that resiliency of knowing, yeah, I'm not real happy where I'm at right this second, but I'm going to get back up. That's the mindset.
Mark, I'm so glad you said that, because, and I'm really glad that you stopped it and that you've brought that back in there, because it's okay not to be okay. I think that's it's something I say a lot, and something that we need to, that's what you're saying. So there are days where you are going to be down, and that's okay. It's okay
Yeah.
to be sad. It's okay to be a bit depressed. It's okay to be a little anxious about these things. That is so much part of it. And when we suppress that ability to process through that, that's when we are going to battle to get up. But by allowing yourself, you get control over that, and then you can get up again. So I'm very glad you brought that up, because we really don't want people to get the message from you that it is, as you say, you're great and smiley now and with your staff, but there are days where you don't want to smile, and that's
That's
okay.
right.
And there's
That's right.
days where you must feel very sad and frustrated, and that's okay. And I think allowing yourself, from what I'm hearing you say, allows you to then get up. So allowing yourself to have the off days allows you to get up.
That's right. I agree with that. And, the one thing I end the book with is, I call it the secret sauce. I think realizing there's so much more bigger than yourself. For me, it's the
So
giving
good.
back.
Yeah.
And I used to say, being brought up in the church, you'd say, hey, you give, you're a blessing to others so that you can be blessed back. And so we'd always say, you're blessing others and you get blessed. But I have found the more you can give, the more you want to give. It's almost like dreaming. I said it's like a muscle. The more you dream, the bigger they get. The
bigger they
giving
get.
that happens. The more you give, the more you want to give more. And I think the secret sauce is when you're given some talents and you're dreaming and you're making some real great things happen. It might be money, it might be helping others, but then you want to give back. And I look now and people say, wow, you get to do this and this. And I say, not in the beginning. We were trying to take care of our own family.
Exactly.
Now today, and I had someone ask me, it'd be a great one for you, is I had someone close to me say, when's enough enough? And I had to ponder on that. I actually went to bed that night, woke up next day, and I thought, boy, am I being selfish because I want to do more and give more and be more? And I went to bed. I woke up next day thinking, if I would have stayed teaching and coaching, we would have changed the lives, because we love people and kids.
Yeah.
But on the level we are now, we get to do so much more and more
Exactly.
giving. And I think the most selfish person is the one that has the abilities, but doesn't do it. And so if you take whatever talent you're given, and we're all different, but if you take that talent and you're developing that, you can, so much more you can give, so much more you can change. And so I went back the next day. It was a family member. And I said, had to think about that, because it made me feel guilty that we're being so successful. But I realized it's never enough. As long as there's kids that need to be fed, as long as there's diseases that need to find cures, as long as people need others, it's never enough. Because the more we can do, the more we can give. And that, to me, is the secret sauce.
That's a beautiful answer. And I think that person who potentially asked that question may have had a little bit of envy there. There could have been, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But love and kindness are endless. Love, kindness, generosity, there's no limits to those. So I totally agree with you. There's never enough when it comes to those, because they just never stop. They're eternal values. So yeah, I agree with you so totally. Love that answer. Can you walk us through a time when you had to completely reframe a situation to move forward? So maybe like one time where you were in one direction and you totally had to reframe to move forward.
Yeah, great question. I think the one that jumps at me first is we were in business about 4 years, and my CFO called me into his office, and he was a good friend also. And he said, Mark, I'm taking off my CFO hat and I'm putting on my friend hat. He goes, you're having to put money in this every month. And he goes, maybe we just got to shut the doors. And I had not thought of that. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I just sat there for a minute, and he goes, I know this is a tough message to bring you. And I said, well, first of all, thank you for your honesty, and that I know you're doing it for concern for me.
Yeah.
But I said, I feel like we're so close. We're just so close.
Yeah.
But you're right. If we got to change it. And so we thought through where we were at the time, what kind of sales we were doing, and we decided to run a contest. And I would have never done this if he hadn't brought that to me. I would have just kept trying to grind and grind. I'm kind of that way. I say we do it with heart and grinding and work hard. But it made me realize I needed to shift what we were doing. And we made that shift, and we threw this contest, and I went out and talked to our top salespeople, and we talked to them about this contest and how they could win it. The momentum from that changed everything.
Wow.
And I would not have done it if he wouldn't have been daring and bold enough to say to me, hey, it's not working the way it is, because I was just going to keep working hard. But instead of just, sometimes, they say when you're digging, quit digging, and I needed to quit working that way and work a different way. And
to
so,
dig in another spot.
so many times in life, when I was coaching, there was a time where we weren't winning, and I couldn't keep running the same plays. We didn't have the talent to run those plays. So we needed to shift that. So I think many times, over our life, I hired a CEO to run my company today because of my health issue. And I wouldn't have done that if it hadn't been for a health issue. So again, I think there's a lot of times where we've got to, it looks like we're up against the wall, but we got to shift our thinking, shift our mindset to become successful.
Very good. That's so great. I love that. I love that you took that. It's like when people say something, you don't have to just follow that advice, but you need to be open to it, because it could be something that, and then you shift your direction. So it's the same sort of thing, but it's in a different direction. Very important. That's really great. Okay, quick fire wrap up. One belief about money that you no longer subscribe to.
Ooh. Boy, that's a really good one. I think one, I would say something was possible or something was impossible. I don't think anything's impossible anymore. I think that I used to think, oh, that's not possible for us, or no, I can't. But now I don't think there is anything. I think if you really put your mind to it, and with the resources we have today, AI is changing the world. My grandson will be over, and I'll ask I don't know how to do that. And he goes, oh, Papa, go to YouTube. And all of a sudden they're explaining how to do it, and I'm like, I really don't think anything is impossible for any of us. I think anyone today listening out there, that if you're stuck somewhere, it's taking a step. It's just changing it a little bit, but keep moving, keep taking those steps. And so I think there was a time where I would thought, no, we don't have the education for that. No, that's not our name. Where today, I don't think you're only limiting yourself. I don't think anything is limiting anymore.
That's amazing. One mental habit you swear by.
A habit I swear by?
Mental habit, something that you're doing with your mind.
Yeah. I think for me, I've become more disciplined. When I get up in the morning, I try to get done the things I really don't want to do that day, because then the rest of the day I don't have to worry about it, and I can do the things I really enjoy. So I think being disciplined more, and really, I'm a list person. I'll make a list of all the things I need to get done today. And I've found, instead of picking off the easy ones, if I do the hard ones first when I first get up, that it makes the rest of the day so enjoyable.
I was excited. As you're saying that, I was excited because I spent a lot of my years training teachers and training students. And one of the things I'd always say in an exam, I'm sure you probably did this, you must have done this because this is your philosophy, is do the hard questions in the exam first, do the hard parts of the homework first, do the hard parts, and then the other stuff comes so easily, So yeah. I agree with that. I love that. I
agree.
A book besides your own that has changed how you think. Can you name a book besides your own?
Yeah.
That's changed how you think.
When I first started, a real aha for me was someone turned me on to the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by
Oh,
Robert
wow. Yeah.
Kiyosaki.
Mhm,
And at
mhm.
that time, all of my family were all employees. They all worked hard all week long, got a paycheck. And when I read his book, the difference of being an employee or being an owner, that was mine. All of a sudden I went, I want to control my time. I want to be an owner. And from then on, my thinking changed. It wasn't to be a better employee, it was to be the owner that had employees.
Love that. And what does the life of your dreams look like for you now beyond the numbers?
You know, I think I'm really excited to put the steps there. I think if you read the book,
Yeah.
I tried to make it where it was a conversation with me. It's kind of real and raw. I mean, I've got the 7 steps. I've got what I think you need to help you get unstuck, to start dreaming bigger. But for me, it was having a conversation so you realize
Mhm.
this is a person that's actually done it. This is
Yeah.
someone talking about theory. This is someone that's walked in these steps. And I put some things that happened to me that wasn't good. I do different the next time. Or
Mhm.
I put some of when I was teaching, there was times that something happened, but I could change my mindset. And then coaching, I changed my mindset. And then when I became an entrepreneur to be out on my own, really helped me in those areas. So I think the book's going to help people wherever they're at. It might be one thing, but they're going to feel like they're having a conversation with me. They're going to feel like it's kind of real, kind of raw, but it's someone that walked in those steps and made it happen too.
I love that. It's real, as you say, real and raw, and that's what really counts. That's the authenticity and it's helpful. I mean, it's real helpful stuff, and simple and practical. So thank you for writing the book, and thank you. Where's the book available?
It's
Available.
right now. You can go. It's on
It's
Amazon. You can follow me at themarkpentecost.com and on Instagram. And excited that it's out now and starting to get some
Congratulations.
feedback and really do hope that it can help people get unstuck, help them realize we're made to dream. God put
So
dreams in
good.
us. So if you've got it in there and you haven't let it out, it's time to let it out.
So good. What a great note to end on. If you've got that dream inside of you, time to let it out, and Mark will help you do that. Mark, thank you so much for being with me on the show. It's been such fun, and I feel very encouraged and by your enthusiasm and your positive attitude that comes through. You have such a great mindset, and I can see you've suffered. I mean, it's very evident that you've been through the ups and the downs, and you are facing a big battle at the moment. And thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge to help more people move forward. So thank you for being with me today.
Well, thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed listening to you and learning from you, and
Thank
it's
you.
very much fun to share this today. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.